The earth itself seems to hold its breath. On the plains of Talas, where the air shimmers with heat and tension, two empires prepare to decide the fate of Asia. The metallic scent of fear mixes with the dust kicked up by restless horses. From one side, the Tang Dynasty's legions stand in formidable formation, their heavy armor glinting, their crossbows locked, their silk banners fluttering in the dry wind. From the other, the forces of the Abbasid Caliphate advance, a tide of faith and steel, their war cries echoing off the distant mountains. Between them stand the Caliphate Turks, the wild card in this high-stakes game of empires. In a single shocking moment, they will turn, and the course of world history will pivot on a blade's edge. This is not merely a battle. It is the moment two worlds collided, and from the impact, a new global order was born. By the dawn of the 8th century, the stage was set for an inevitable confrontation. In the east, the Tang dynasty ruled over what was arguably the most advanced civilization on earth. From their magnificent capital, Chang'an, a metropolis of over 1 million souls, they projected power along the entire Silk Road. Their armies, a perfect machine of discipline and technology, had subdued the Western Turks, checked Tibetan ambitions, and woven a web of vassal states from the Tarim Basin to the Pamir Mountains. They were the undisputed masters of the East. Meanwhile, from the West, a new force had exploded onto the world stage. The Islamic Caliphate, under the new Abbasid dynasty, had overthrown the Umayyads in a bloody revolution. Their empire now stretched from the shores of the Atlantic to the borders of India. They established a new glorious capital in Baghdad, conceived as the Round City, a testament to their imperial ambition and intellectual curiosity. Their gaze turned inexorably eastward toward the wealthy city-states of Transoxiana, the gateway to the Silk Road's riches. Two expansionist empires, two universalizing ideologies, were now on a collision course in the heart of Central Asia. The spark that ignited the war was struck in the Fergana Valley. For decades, a tense shadow war had played out between Tang and Arab proxies. In 715, with Tibetan support, the Arabs had been pushed back. In 717, they were defeated again. But the Abbasids were relentless. They consolidated, built fortresses, and slowly converted local rulers. The true casus belli, however, came in 750. The ambitious Tang general Gao Shanji, the hero of the western frontiers, captured the strategic city of Tashkent. In a move of staggering brutality, he executed its Turkic king and looted the city. The king's son fled to Samarkand, pleading for justice from the Abbasid governor Ziyad ibn Salih. The response was swift. Ziyad, a veteran of the Abbasid revolution, assembled a formidable army. He merged his corps of Arab veterans with thousands of Turkic horsemen and zealous volunteers from Khorasan. They marched east, with one goal: to break Tang power forever. General Gao, aware of the threat, marched west to meet them. His force was a mirror of his enemies, elite Tang regulars, loyal Turkic allies from the Karluks, and frontier garrison troops. In July of 751 AD, the two juggernauts met on the banks of the Talas River. What followed was not a swift battle, but a brutal 5-day siege of attrition. Modern scholars estimate the forces were nearly equal, perhaps 40,000 men on each side. The first days were a nightmare of relentless combat. The Tang crossbows and heavy infantry formations held firm against the Abbasid cavalry charges. The Arab and Khorasani infantry, hardened by years of revolution, pressed against the Chinese lines. The air was darkened by arrows. The ground churned to mud with blood. It was a stalemate of epic proportions, a grinding test of will where neither superpower would yield. The deadlock was shattered on the 5th day by the ultimate betrayal. The Karluk Turks, watching the carnage and calculating their own future, turned on their Tang allies. They fell upon the Chinese rear and flanks with savage force. At that same moment, Ziyad ibn Salih launched his entire reserve in a final desperate frontal assault. Caught in a perfect hammer and anvil, the Tang army disintegrated. The orderly retreat became a rout, then a slaughter. Gao Xianzhi himself barely escaped with a fragment of his force. The scale of the defeat was monumental. Chinese records, though sparse, suggest tens of thousands were killed or captured. The road to China lay open. Yet in a twist of historical irony, the victors could not claim their prize. The Abbasid Caliphate was soon consumed by internal conflicts and could not follow up on its stunning victory. For the Tang, the defeat at Talas was a catastrophic blow from which they would never recover. Just 4 years later, the devastating Lushan rebellion erupted, tearing the empire apart from within and killing millions. The Tang were forced to withdraw their armies from Central Asia forever, ending a millennium of Chinese influence in the region. But the most profound consequence of the Battle of Talas was not written in blood, but in pulp and ink. Among the Chinese captives taken to Samarkand were skilled artisans, masters of papermaking, a technology the Chinese had guarded for centuries. The Abbasids, recognizing its immense value, established the first paper mills outside of China. This technological transfer was a revolution in disguise. Paper, cheap and durable, fueled the Islamic Golden Age. It allowed for the explosion of scholarship at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, where the works of the Greeks, Persians and Indians were translated, preserved and expanded upon. Centuries later, this knowledge, preserved on paper born from the ashes of Talas, would travel to Europe via Al-Andalus and Sicily, providing the kindling for the Renaissance. The battle that seemed to decide the fate of Central Asia had in fact redirected the very flow of human knowledge. It was a clash of empires that gave birth to the modern world, a testament to the fact that the most enduring victories are often not those won by the sword, but by the pen. Because the real story of Talas begins after the killing stopped. Among the thousands of Chinese captives were men who were not soldiers, but artisans, masters of a secret craft, papermaking. Their knowledge, more valuable than any battlefield victory, was taken west to Samarkand and Baghdad. Almost overnight, the Islamic world embraced this revolution. Books were no longer rare treasures. Ideas could travel faster and farther than any army. This simple technology, stolen from the ashes of a battle, fueled the Islamic Golden Age. It allowed the wisdom of the Greeks, the Persians, and the Indians to be preserved and expanded upon in the great libraries of Baghdad. Centuries later, that same knowledge, carried on paper, would spark the European Renaissance. So, while the Tang and the Abbasids fought for control of a river, they accidentally redirected the entire river of human history. The Battle of Talas proved that the most powerful legacy is not written in blood, but in ink.